Hey guys, this video is about Leslie matrices, which are used to model the population of female species. We're going to be talking about polar bears today, so that's fun. How we're going to do this is we're going to start with our information that we have. And as you can see from the graph here, we've got the age of our polar bears between 0 and 1 year old, 1 and 2 years old, and 2 and 3 years old. And then we have our number of polar bears for each age group. So we have 80, 40, and 60. And then we have the birth rate and survival rate of each of those populations. And our birth rate for 0 to 1 year old is 0.28. Our birth rate for 1 to 2 years old is 1.2. And our birth rate for 2 to 3 years old is 0.5. And what those mean are, since our total number of polar bears in each age group are all females, what our birth rate is saying is that is the number or the percentage of female polar bears that are born from our total number of polar bears. And our survival rate is the percentage of our polar bears from our populations that survive to the next age group. And for this example, we're assuming that there are no polar bears older than 3 years old. So that's why our survival rate for our 2 to 3 year old population is 0. And next, we're going to move in and put our information into our matrices. And you'll see we have a Leslie matrix and a population matrix. And our population matrix is just our first row from our graph from the previous slide. So it's our total number of our population for each age group. So we have 80, 40, and 60. Now our Leslie matrix is a little bit more difficult. So our first row of our Leslie matrix is just our birth rate for each of those populations. So we have 0.28, 1.2, and 0.5. Our second row of the Leslie matrix is, the first entry is the survival rate of our first population of polar bears. And then the other two entries are just zeros. And you'll see why in a little bit. But our third row is, our first entry is a 0, and then our second entry is the survival rate for the second population of polar bears. And then our third entry is again a 0. Now we're going to move into what our Leslie matrix can help us do. So we have our population starting out. We have our population at 0 years. So we're going to try and find our population after 1 year. And how we're going to do that is P sub 1 is equal to the Leslie matrix times P sub 0, or our initial population matrix. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to take our row 1 of our Leslie matrix and multiply it by our population matrix. And that's going to give us 100.4. And that's going to be our first entry in P sub 1. And then our second entry is going to be row 2 of the Leslie matrix times P sub 0, which is 40.8. And then our third entry is going to be row 3 of our Leslie matrix times P sub 0, which is 32.4. Now what that gives us is our population after 1 year of 100.4 polar bears, less than 1 year old, or our newborn polar bears, 40.8 polar bears in our 1 to 2 year old age group, and 32.4 polar bears in our 2 to 3 year old age group. Now, what if we want to find P sub 50, or our population after 50 years? Well, let's start by trying to find our population after 2 years. So our P sub 2 is going to be the Leslie matrix times P sub 1. And we found P sub 1 by doing the Leslie matrix times P sub 0. So in order to find P sub 2, it's the Leslie matrix times the Leslie matrix times P sub 0, or the Leslie matrix squared times P sub 0. Therefore, the general Leslie matrix equation for a population after I number of years is the Leslie matrix to the I power times P sub 0.